Good morning, everybody. I'd like to introduce myself briefly. I'm Linda Kender. I am the regional director for MMA in MENA. It's a pleasure having you all here today. We are a marketing and media alliance, nonprofit association, and we work with marketeers across the globe to bring knowledge and upskilling to the industry where needed, especially when it comes to technological and other marketing issues that are arising in our daily. And today we are addressing a very important law change that has affected the marketing industry, especially in the UAE, which, as we call it now, influencer marketing, it has become the new word of mouth kind of marketing. And we know how important it is, and it is a very big and growing segment in the Middle East as a whole, and especially in the UAE. So today we want to know if what are the new laws, what are their implications, and how to deal and make sure that you are compliant both as an influencer and as a company. And we have the pleasure of hosting Mr. Anibale from Younger Law, and he will take us through the latest laws and everything, and let us know if we need any more information. Thank you very much, Anibale, for joining us through our legal committee's guidance under Laura Renaud. So thank you, and I will hand over to Anibale now.
Great. Thank you very much, Linda, for the introduction, and thank you everybody for joining in today. As Linda explained, today's topic will focus on influencer marketing and the recent changes in legislation in the UAE and making sure that we all operate in this field compliantly. So by way of a short introduction, sorry, I'm trying to change my slide, but it's not working. Okay, there it is. By way of a short introduction, this slide covers a bit of the work that I do on a day-to-day, but what is more relevant today is that I've been introduced to Linda and MMA by Laura Reynard, a close colleague that I work with on another association, Women in Law, for those of you who joined from that side of the organization. And I've been made a member of the legal committee of MMA, and it's a pleasure to help them with this work that they do. Where does MMA's work intersect with what I do? I am a private client solicitor. Well, firstly, I'm originally Italian. I qualified as a solicitor lawyer in England and Wales, and then moved to Dubai, where I did my law training, and I've been developing my career. Most of the work that I do is private client work. So what that includes is corporate and commercial work for private individual who wants to operate in the UAE or from abroad, move to the UAE, or even from the UAE, move to abroad, and help them with setting up their companies and running them on a day-to-day operation. And that is where my everyday work intersects with what we will discuss today, which is what an influencer content creator needs and to operate in this field in the UAE or from abroad with the UAE market, as well as general compliance rule that they need to be aware of anytime that their work intersects with the UAE market, as well as what a marketing agency needs to do to make sure that they're compliant and they operate and all of their operation are above board. So very briefly, these are the topics that we will cover today. So what an advertiser permit is, which is something that a lot of people I'm sure have heard on the news, the conditions that you need to comply with to get an advertiser permit, how this sort of permit would work for a visitor, and as well as what a visitor actually means in practice, any exceptions that applies, general compliance from different perspective, both as they relate to the advertiser permit and the new rules, as well as general compliance with rules that were already there and already exist on a more general and broad perspective. Other licenses in the world of in the media world that you need to be aware of. What are the penalties and risks that we're facing if this compliance is not adhered with? And we'll talk about some tax consideration, general corporate and commercial consideration, because as you will see, the topic can intersect with all the new updates in the law. So starting with what an advertiser permit is, this is simply a mandatory license that needs to be obtained by an individual who engages in advertising activity on social media platform. What does that mean in reality? You may ask, do I need a permit if I am simply posting some content on my social media, personal content on my social media, or if I decide to run a side hustle, let's say that you are a baker and want to start selling your cakes and cookies online, do I need a social media permit if I'm doing that? No, you do not. However, let's say that you're running this side hustle as a baker, and a brand approaches you and tells you, "I see that you're popular, and I want to sell this kitchen product, and I want you to advertise it." And then you use your personal platform to advertise that product. In that case, you would need an advertiser permit. It doesn't matter if this brand approaches you, this client approaches you and tells you that they want you to do it for free, or that they will simply gift you the product, or you simply decide to advertise the product because you like it and you enjoy using it and you want other people to benefit from it. In the moment that you start advertising this product to third parties, you do need to get a permit. So my recommendation is that you always think and start on the assumption that you might need that permit, and then see whether you fall into a certified exceptions, because the risk of running this business without a permit are high, and we don't want you to end up getting a fine or risk your overall business. Now, this rule has been issued by the UAE Media Council, which is the regulatory body, at the beginning of 2025. And initially, the first deadline was set for October 2025, and they have released a lot of extensions to having to get an advertiser permit until the 31st of January 2026. So as of today, if somebody is operating in this field without an advertiser permit, they are in breach, and they need to make sure that they update their compliance to make sure that this breach is no longer occurring. So why these advertiser permits? Obviously, there is not just one reason why the government and the UAE Media Council have decided to implement these new rules. The overarching reason is potentially it's most likely the fact that we as a world and the society are going more and more towards operating online, operating on social media, selling and carrying out business on social media. And the UAE government wants to make sure that all of this is regulated to avoid people using social media platform to mislead, scam, and defraud people. So ultimately, it's done so that the UAE becomes one of the leading government in the world within which people can feel safe in operating their business on social media, so that because the government tries to control it as much as possible to favor a positive market. Now, what are the
So
conditions?
sorry, Anibale, there's a question.
Yes.
Advertiser permit is for individuals or even influencer agencies need it? Are you
So it's
gonna?
mostly for individuals. I will cover that. It's mostly for
Okay.
individuals. Agencies will be able to carry out that activity already by way of their license. However, in the moment that they employ a person, a single individual to do that, even if that person is an employee, a direct employee, and they have to use a social media account that is their personal account, in that instance, the individual needs to get their own permit. So the permit is something that can be applied only individually. There are instances where the company or marketing agency can get them themselves as well, and we will discuss them shortly.
Okay.
So going back to what an individual needs to have to what an individual needs to comply with in order to qualify for a permit, they must be competent and of the age of 18. They must be of good conduct and not be convicted on any of any crime that involves dishonor or breach of trust. They must not have had a license revoked or a media establishment closed. Basically, they must not have been banned in any way from carrying out this sort of activity. They need to successfully complete awareness and training programs as set by the UAE Media Council, have no standing financial dues or fines with the UAE Media Council, and fulfill any other conditions that may be set from time to time. Now we'll shortly discuss all these requirements and how they apply in practice as you make your application for an advertiser permit, but focusing on the last requirement, that is obviously a big provision under the law by which the government gives themselves the ability to set requirements from time to time. But as of now, there is no additional requirements that we need to be aware of. So how does it work what's the process to get an advertiser permit? So number one, you need to have a license to carry out the activity. So having a license doesn't necessarily mean setting up a business. You simply need to get a license in your own personal name so that you're authorized to carry out this activity. You can also decide to get a company to carry out the activity, but we will discuss that later on. What's the advantages and disadvantages of doing it through the company route or just doing it individually? Let's focus on getting a license individually as of now, because that is what applies to the most content creators and most advertisers. They will probably get a license because costs of getting a license in your own personal name are significantly lower than what it would be to set up a company. You can get a license in one of the many free zones of the UAE. I'm not sure many of you are familiar with free zones, but the UAE has over 40 different jurisdiction with different rules where you can get a trade license to operate a business. It is recommended that you get a license with the Dubai Economic Development Departments or another economic department of the relevant emirate where you might be in. The reason why is that that will allow you to carry out the business in the whole of the UAE. If you get a free zone license, that you might be limited in carrying out the activity within the free zone unless you get a permission to carry out outside the free zone as well. It is very simple to get a DED license. You can go on the Invest Dubai website, access with your UAE pass, the relevant license that you will be looking at. It's the relevant business activity you will be looking at is marketing management. You can insert all your details, apply for a DED trader license, which reduces cost significantly, and you're looking at a cost of around 1,000, I think it's around 2,000 dirhams, but where you were in that range. As a second step, once you have your license, you need to get a police clearance certificate. This clearance certificate you can get from the advertiser, content creator can get from the emirate that they reside in. They can simply go on the police website or application and request for one. The cost for a police clearance certificate, last time I applied for one, was around 250, 300 dirhams. I do not believe that the cost changed significantly. Once you do have the police clearance certificate, you can go ahead and apply for the advertiser permit. To do so, you simply access the UAE Media Council, you log in with your UAE pass if you do have a UAE pass, or you can create your own personal profile. Start the application. As of now, it's one of the only few applications that are available on the website, so it's very easy and very accessible to find. The first step will be inserting the details of your license and your own personal details. Second step will be the police clearance certificate. And the third step will be ensuring that you list all of the social media platform on which you plan to operate. Now, this is very important because it doesn't matter if you have an advertiser permit for, let's say, your Instagram, but then you have not linked your TikTok account to the advertiser permit. You need to make sure that all the accounts that you want to be advertising a product on are registered under that same permit. As of now, it doesn't mean that you will pay any additional cost. The government just needs to make sure that all the accounts that you're using are linked to that permit. And then once you've updated this list, there will be a short video to watch. It's around 3 minutes. It basically covers everything that we'll be discussing today in a much shorter way. And then you can make the application. And in around 3 working days, the application will be accepted and you will have a digital permit. So going back for a second to the conditions that we discussed before, by doing this online application, you will be proving that, in fact, you do have a valid license and that you've not been banned from practicing this activity. that you are of good conduct and you have no criminal conviction in your name, and you will have completed the training program that, as of now, that short 3-minute video that the UAE Media Council wants you to watch. Obviously, it's a very new process and it's a very new law that we're dealing with, so we do not know whether the UAE Media Council will at some point introduce any other awareness trainings that where they will require attendance from the advertisers and content creators that want to get this permit. So to summarize the cost, as of now, getting the advertiser permit is free. So the government is obviously doing that because they realize that they want to incentivize people to register and start complying with this new law. And from year 4, the cost will be around 1,000 dirham. The cost of a trade license is not a fixed cost. It will heavily depend on the jurisdiction where you decide to get your trade license with. With the DAD, you're looking at around 2,000, maybe 3,000 dirhams. But if you, let's say, decide to set up a company, and then the cost might be significantly higher. And depending from the free zone that you choose to set up your company in, it can go from anywhere as low as 5 to 7,000 dirhams to over 40, 50,000 dirhams a year plus. So that obviously then depends on how you want to structure your business and how well your business is doing and what your specific requirements are. So does this rule apply to anybody everywhere in the world? Short answer, yes. Anybody who is seeking to advertising content in the UAE needs to get an advertiser permit. So does that mean that if, as a marketing agency, I employ a content creator in Italy to produce content, then I will advertise in the UAE? Does that person needs to get a permit? Short answer, yes. It doesn't matter whether that person is located abroad, creates content in the UAE, as long as the content that they create is aimed to the UAE market, then they do need to get a permit. And that is why the visitor permits rule have been put in place. In that case, the responsibility of getting a permit will not be of the individual, but it will be of the marketing agency. So in that case, the marketing agency needs to register with the UAE Media Council, be approved by them, and then they will have a chance to apply for visitor permits for people abroad. And it will be the responsibility of the marketing agency to ensure that all those requirements that we discussed before are complied with by the person that lives abroad. So making sure that they have not been convicted of any crime, that they're in good standing, that they have the capabilities to carry out the task that they're being assigned. And to facilitate that, it will be a requirement that this application is accompanied by a contract that regulates the relationship between the visitor, the agency, as well as the agency's client. The cost for a visitor permit are in roughly the same as the one for a normal permit. It will be 500 dirham for the first 3 months and another 500 dirham if an extension to 6 months needs to be sought. It is not clear after that whether a person can reapply for a visitor permit, but or what the cooling off period would be before that person can reapply as a visitor permit. Because as of now, they wouldn't be able to reapply right away. It would be required that at that point, the person consider becoming a UAE resident, considering that they've been working for a prolonged period in the UAE market, and that they would apply for a permit. But we're still looking for a bit of more clarity on how renewal for visitor permits work. So to close down the conversation on the advertiser permit, we can talk about the only 2 exceptions that exist at the time. So number 1 is any individual that promotes a product or service that belongs to themselves or to a company that they own personally with the personal account. Then in that case, the person does not need to get an advertiser permit. We briefly discussed that before as well. And people who are under the age of 18 and post about contents in educational, sports, or cultural fields, they would also be outside the requirement of getting a permit, provided obviously that they comply with age classification rules. What that means in practical terms is that a person under the age of 18 shouldn't be posting content that is not appropriate for a minor to be posting, or should not be exploited by somebody who might want to use a minor to post something for which they would otherwise need a permit. And to simply sum it up, think if you're advertising a third-party product or service, then you do need to get a permit, and there is no way around it. Again, it doesn't matter if you're doing that free of charge for an in-kind consideration, in exchange as a favor to a friend, or simply because you like the product and you want people to know about it.
Anibale,
Any?
we
Yes, sorry.
have some questions. Let me ask them
Absolutely.
in the order that they came up. So, what about PR agencies that do not work with influencers but share news coverage about clients, etc., on their agency social channels? Would they need an advertiser permit in that case?
So I doubt that they would because a PR agency, the pure business activity of the PR agency is to obviously promote content on their channels. So as long as the PR agency is doing that informally as the agency itself, they wouldn't need that. If the PR agency is instead using one of their employees directly to post that content with their personal account because maybe they're popular, if they create a lot of popularity, then at that point they would need to that
Have the
individual that
advertiser.
is doing it would need to get the license. So let's say
Okay.
sum it up by looking at who is posting the content. Is it the Facebook profile of the PR agency itself? Unlikely that they will need to get a separate permit. If instead it's an employee that is using their LinkedIn to post that service, then they might need one.
Okay, we're gonna ask. We have questions about LinkedIn for sure, but before we get to that, for a media company, having an influencer promoting its channel or shows on her social media, is the media house liable to ensure that the influencer has the advertiser permit?
Yes, that is part of the compliant conversation that we will cover in the next few slides. But yes, the media agency needs to make sure that there is some sort of disclosure. I think it's actually mentioned in this slide that I'm showing now. Yes, conduct due diligence to ensure that the advertiser is not fake, using a pseudonym, or involved in any fraudulent activity.
Okay. So if the target market is global and is creating content in the UAE, the influencer wouldn't need a permit because they're creating the content here, but they're promoting and advertising it outside of the UAE. Is that true?
Uh, you're trading on a bit of a gray area there. If there is no way that the content can be uh, dragged back to the UAE, then you might get away with not needing a permit. But let's say that you're posting a content, the content that you're recording, you can visibly see that it's being recorded in the UAE, or you post that you or work and are based in the UAE, then you would need a permit for that.
Okay. Okay, so a question about LinkedIn. Does it count as a social platform?
Yes,
Like Meta, YT, and TikTok. So
yes.
for all the we're professionals. I'm working in the MMA and I have an event and my followers will see the event. So I'm promoting my event or this webinar today. Do I need to get an influencer like advertiser permit?
You're doing it for a company that you work for and that you operate for. Uh,
Yeah,
so uh,
but it's not my
I
company.
Uh, I don't think that that is relevant as much as it's a company that you work for on a day to day. So in that case, if it's a service that you're offering personally as part of your employment in the company, that you wouldn't necessarily need to get a permit for that. For example, I am a lawyer and I post about legal content and the service that I offer as part of me working in the company, and I don't need to get an advertiser permit for that. But in the moment
Okay.
that I start promoting content of a client and I recommend a client who's a business that does X, Y, and Z, I would need a permit to advertise that.
Okay. Okay, let me just go through the rest. Yeah. So, yeah, I think we're good with the questions for
Yeah.
now. If there's any other questions, we'll take them at the next end of that. part of
Yeah,
your session?
absolutely. Yeah, so just
Okay,
to, because I think it's very important that we clarify, sometimes we think of social media as just a meta platform like Facebook, TikTok, X, but anything that is online, anything that is available to the public will count as a social media platform because if you read the definition under the law, it's very, very wide and overarching. So anything can fall into that unless there is an express direction from the government. Sorry, that excludes it from that definition.
excellent.
Anyways, moving forward, I think some of this slide was covered also under the question that I answered. But obligation number one is that the advertiser permit needs to be displayed on all the social media accounts that are registered under that advertiser permit to make sure that that account is compliant with regulation. Uh, we only make sure that you publish advertisements through the account that is registered with the UAE Media Council and that are linked to the permit. We already discussed why this is important as you prepare your application. As a marketing agency or as a client who is employing the content creator directly, make sure that you conduct due diligence to um, ensure that that person is registered. We will discuss shortly how that is also a way for the UAE government to incentivize the use of local creators rather than foreign creators. Um, General compliance rules, advertisement must not harm the public interest, no false or misleading information needs to be posted, and we'll discuss a bit more in detail what you need to do to make sure that all approvals are obtained if you're posting any sort of specialized contents or contents that would otherwise be regulated. But in the meantime, to sum it up, these are the four key elements that an advertising agent and agency or entity needs to be aware of and needs to be sure of as they are employing a content creator or they're aiming to work with a content creator. So first of all, they need to ensure that their permit complies with all the conditions and that they have a valid permit. And again, they need to avoid dealing with unauthorized visiting advertisers. They need to make sure that the advertiser is aware of the fact that they need a permit even if they operate from abroad. Because of this, the UAE is, trying to make it easier for an agency to employ somebody who might already have their permit and might already be valid and fully compliant with UAE law because the marketing agency might not want the hassle of having to apply for a permit for the visitors who might just tell them, I don't know, I'm not based in the UAE, I have no idea what I'm doing there, so you take care of that. And again, it promotes the use of people who are UAE resident as content creators. Um, Number three, always contract with permit holders that are listed on the UAE Media Council public database. Now, the regulation have this as an express requirement, but it doesn't look like the UAE Media Council public database is still live. I tried to access it myself a few times, but I can't find it online. However, if you do access the UAE Media Council website, there's always the option to open an inquiry and submit any permit, any advertising permits that you're given on the website to check their veracity. At the same time, normally this kind of permits would come with a QR code that would allow you to verify whether that permit is valid. So you should be able to do it through the electronic permit. And if not, the content creator can always give you access to his own platform to verify that they have an actual valid permit. And always regulate relationship through a written agreement with the advertiser. Ultimately, because if you want to limit the level of disclosure and compliance that you do with the other party in the agreement, you can put the burden on them to say, you have the permit, you've shown me the permit, you are in good conduct, you've not had any criminal conviction recently, you will ensure that all of your contact will abide with the UAE public standard and morals. And as a marketing agency, you can limit your liability in that sense. But in the same way, the creator needs to make sure that they also limit their liability in their relationship with the marketing agency by having a clear contract that defines who's responsible for what. Um, Other two very specific elements that I would like to discuss and bring to your attention is the Finfluencer license. Many of you might have heard about this. It was announced in mid 2025, and the UAE is one of the leading government in the world that is allowing people to get a license that allows people to talk and advertise regulated financial products on the UAE market. There is no need to register, renew, or pay any fees related to this for the next 3 years. But we're looking to see how this will develop, but it will certainly make the UAE one of the leading markets in content creation surrounding financial products. When it comes to health advertisement, no kind of health advertisement is allowed without the approval of the Ministry of Health in the UAE. So people need to be very careful when they're advertising health products. They can get an in principle approval, but the reality is that that is something that applies to any sort of regulated profession. You shouldn't be posting content that relates to real estate unless the person that is doing it has a valid real estate license. Same for lawyers. If you're not authorized to practice law in the UAE by the courts of an emirate that can give you such authorization, you should not be posting or advertising legal services that you provide or recommend. Sorry. Um, and again, as a general overarching principle, always make sure that all the content that is posted by you as a marketing agency, by the advertiser that you work together to produce and post, does not offend UAE public morals. So what does that mean? Make sure that your joke do not offend religions, Islamic belief, they respect other people, privacy. I want to kind of stress how important privacy is, especially from somebody who might come and operate from a foreign jurisdiction. The UAE has very strict privacy rules. Even if you are in public and you're recording content in public, the mere fact that you are recording a person is a breach of privacy rules. Even if that content is not is posted online or is posted online with the person's identity anonymized, then you could still be deemed in breach because you cannot record a person in public without their express written consent. In fact, a lot of time, if you're recording in public and police or security sees you, they will stop you and ask you to get a permit to show that you have a permit to do that kind of recordings in public. Um, so obviously this is incredibly important because we will soon see what are the fines that you will be exposing yourself to if you're in breach of any of these regulation. But it's you might think, how does somebody report all of this happening and how do I get a fine in the first place? Now, the UAE Government and Media Council do tend to police online content from time to time, but it's not very active because it would also be realistic with the amount of content and that is available online. However, they do entertain complaints from the public. Both the police and the UAE Media Council do. And as a lawyer, I've heard a lot of stories of people being reported to the police simply because they recorded them, they said something that is offensive. And you need to make sure that what you're saying that is offensive is not offensive in Arabic, because it might not be offensive in your own language, but when it's translated to Arabic, it's offensive. And because Arabic is the language of the land, it's the official language of the UAE, it will be that comment that is offensive in Arabic that could put you into trouble. So before you're producing any sort of content, when you're advertising any sort of content, if you think that you're treading carefully on a gray line, that the content might be morally compromising, or it might be a joke that could offend certain people, make sure that you talk with expert that can tell you that from a UAE standpoint, that content is not offensive. And if you're dealing with anything that is very sensitive, try to get a prior approval from the UAE Media Council so that you're protected on all sides. And that applies both to a client that might employing a marketing agency, to the marketing agency that is employing the advertiser, and to the advertiser themselves that are creating and then posting the content with their face on it. And why have I stressed how important this is? Because as you can see, especially in the last four heads, when you're posting content that can be considered obscene, offensive, misleading, uh, harm the public interest, you're looking at fines that can even start from 100 or 250,000 dirhams. And you're also looking at a prison, at a potential prison sentence. So, uh, I've it is very, very important because anybody who is a UAE resident and is based in the UAE knows how the UAE government takes all of this seriously. Any questions so far?
Yes, many actually.
That's great.
So, um, is there any definition of influencers, i.e., follower numbers, or
No, no.
no?
The
Okay.
definition, it doesn't matter how many followers you add. The test for you to be able to get this permit is, am I promoting content or a service for a third party, promoting a product of a third party?
Okay. As a PR agency, do we create the written agreement on behalf of the client? So, like the restaurant, is the written agreement between agency and content creator or brand and content creator, and who signs it?
So if normally as an agency you would have both, you would have a content with a standard contract template that you can use and adapt for when the client is engaging you to carry out the work that you would sign directly with the client, or and you would also have a contract that you sign directly with the content creator that then you employ to carry out that service for the client, making him aware
So
that you're doing.
the PR agency would have to sign two contracts, one with the client to the PR agency and one with the PR agency to the content
Yes,
creator.
that's correct. You would have two contracts where you bridge the relationship and where you make them both aware that if that you will be employed, you're either giving them the work on behalf of a client who's a third party, and you would be for the client that you will be giving the work to a content creator
Is
who's another
there
third
a
party.
standard contract for people to be able to just adapt with all the legislations of UAE already uh, imprinted?
Um, I am not aware of such a template myself that you could potentially get online publicly. Obviously, as a
Maybe.
lawyer, my advice would always be that you make the investment of reaching out to a lawyer. You discuss your requirements with that lawyer, and then you get a template, a standard template that then you can use with both your clients and your content creators that cover all aspects of UAE law, but also cover the practical commercial sides that apply to your specific situation. Because I'm sure that there is a template available online somewhere that you can download, or if not, you can always use AI to come up with one. So that is
Yeah.
obviously two options that are always available to the general public. What those options don't consider are the commercial scenarios and realities of everyday's evolving legislation as it applies to you. So as a lawyer, I always recommend that you do get one in place with a qualified lawyer that operates in the market, and then every 6 months to a year, you have it reviewed from that lawyer to make sure that it is compliant with any possible updates that may have been with the law, which may means that you will spend nothing because there will be no changes to make, or you might
Mm.
have to do the contract de novo because the previous one that you have no longer covers a lot of other things that have been clarified by new regulations. And given the novelty of these new regulations that have been put into place, knowing how the UAE works, there will be a lot of changes moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. What does a contract typically like if someone is preparing contract for a PR agency, what does it typically cost, like an average, so that everyone can have an idea of what kind of investment they need to make?
So in DRAM, it would what I mean, I can't speak about the
In
a
yeah,
wide
like
commercial
in
rate.
your firm. Yeah. Yeah,
In
yeah.
my opinion, normally to get a standard template made, you would be looking at between 15 to 20,000 dirham. as an initial
Okay.
investment. And then obviously the cost changes significantly with what your specific requirements are and how expansive that contracts needs to be. Um, that would be per contract. Obviously, then you would be able to the advice that you would receive as part of that price would include what needs to be changed when you use that contract in the future, what it
Mm.
covers, what it doesn't. And you can always try and get a blended rate. For example, if you're doing two contracts, we would personally try and offer a bit of a discount where maybe on the second contract you would get something between 25-30% discount rather than having to pay that fee twice
Yeah.
because of how
Okay.
similar they could be in certain senses.
Okay. The next question. What if a visitor sharing his daily travel story on social media, do they need a permit? I think this was covered in the visiting permit, right?
Yes, if the visitor is simply posting content for themselves, even if they are what is normally an influencer, they wouldn't need a permit for that because they're posting their own content on their own social media platform. If that visitor is coming to do a brand deal in the UAE and they post about that, then they need to make sure that they have a visitor permit. And in that case, the marketing agency or client that is employing them should be able to take care of that.
So I visited Dubai. I'm not a resident. I have personal influence or whatever it is. I go to Bakery and Co. and I say like, okay, today I'm visiting Bakery and Co. It's not really an advertisement, but it's my personal
Yes, correct. If you're saying
journal.
I'm visiting and I love this place, that is fine. If you're saying I recommend that all of you come over and get this donut from Bakery and Co. because I loved it, then in that case you're advertising and promoting, and you would need to get a permit with that. So,
So I
and
love it is okay. Come and buy it is not.
yeah, that's correct.
Okay. 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 And how long does it take to get the permit, the visitor one and the normal one?
It's 3 working days, roughly. Obviously, that is what the standard is once the application is submitted. If the UAE Media Council says, I want to extra information on this thing, then you will have to provide extra information. It might take longer. But as of now, 3 working days is the maximum that you would expect before you get a response as a yes or no. Sometimes you may even get it immediately.
Okay, great. And can the influencer come here and publish content after the permit gets issued? I guess yes.
Yes, yes, of course.
Okay. All
They
right.
can they
So
can they can
there's
come yeah no they can come here and visit the country even before that, or they might not even come to the UAE at all. But if they're posting content that is aimed to the UAE public or that concerns a product that is in the UAE, then they need to wait to have the permit before
permit.
they post the content. They can also start
Okay.
working on the content beforehand, but as long as it's not public, then that is fine. But once they want to make it public, they need to have the permit to do so.
Okay, so this is, I'm guessing, from someone who has an influencer agency. So we have influencers based in KSA, but have
Yeah.
reach in UAE. And we have a media company registered both in KSA and the UAE. When we create content in KSA and the influencers publish them, some of which have reach in the UAE, will this legally affect us, or they only need to have the permit when they start creating the content in UAE itself?
So having reach in the UAE doesn't create a requirement for you to have the license, but if the content covers the UAE market or promotes a product in the UAE, then you do need a permit, even if you're based in KSA. So let's say that you're an influencer who based in the US in KSA is promoting art gallery XYZ in Riyadh, and people in the UAE learn about it, see their content, that they know they don't need an advertiser permit because simply the fact that a UAE resident or UAE based person is able to see that content on the internet doesn't mean that you need to get the influencer needs to get the advertiser permit for the UAE. But if the KSA influencer is gonna um, make a post saying people of the UAE come to Riyadh to see gallery X, Y, and Z, then that person needs to get the permit. And to
This
do
is it,
so,
it it is a
yeah.
little bit mind-boggling, I must say, because I mean, if someone in Saudi is telling people to, or someone in the States that have nothing to do with, the Middle East rules, if they're saying, okay, people of, I don't know,
Well,
UAE, come and
no,
see the
absolutely.
new
I get
museum.
that. And it's a bit hard because you think, how do they check and how do they control it? The risk
Yeah,
for those people is low, but the risk is for the marketing agency, especially if they're based in the
yeah,
UAE, or for
yeah,
the client. If obviously, um, let's do a practical scenario of yes, a US citizen who's a very popular influencer. They go to the UAE, they've traveled there, and they've taken a lot of content. And when they go back to the US, they post about it all, and they say, "I highly recommend that you do this, this, and that." Take my word carefully, but I don't think anything would happen to them because it is not obviously in the interest of the UAE Media Council to highly regulate that, especially if that content on material is not offensive.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, However, if they have done that, and then the UAE Media Council finds out that they have done that because a UAE media marketing agency or the owners of these different places have hired them without making sure that this this US-based influencer had the right permit, then they might be exposing themselves to being fined for
The
for not
fines. Yeah.
ensuring that everything was into place.
Okay.
Now, again, I don't want to say that the influencer will be completely void of risk because I think all of us have heard stories if people were based in the UAE, people based in the
Yeah.
UAE, about people who just came here as tourists and they've done something online that they shouldn't have. And then the next time that they came, they found themselves with a travel ban because you never know if you're posting something that is offensive or misleading and you get reported what the consequences of those are. They're not necessarily linked to the media permit, but if you've done all that you've done with a media permit, with the backup of an agency and checking that all the content that you posted was in line with the UAE media rules, then you're decreasing the risk that anything like that might happen. Or if it does, you're better positioned to challenge it because you can say, I've done everything according to the rules and I shouldn't be paying consequences now. So
Okay.
I
I
understand that
have,
obviously it's hard to, sorry if I could just finish. I understand it's hard
yeah,
to get your mind around, but that is why I think it's very important what I said at the beginning, which is always before you post something and as you're doing it professionally, always start on the assumptions that you do need a permit, that there is a rule that you need to comply with, and ask advice from somebody that works in the field or that like MMA is operating to try and raise awareness. Attend seminars like this and ask questions. And then you will be better positioned to say, okay, this applies to me, this does not. I know how to move forward.
okay. I I have two more questions. Who decides on what is public morals? Is there a guideline that is,
Um,
established by the media council so that people know? Because what I might think is moral, someone else
yeah,
might think is not. So,
no, absolutely.
how is that defined?
There is no fixed guidelines,
Mm-hmm.
so that is a bit tricky to navigate. The better way to do it is making sure that you speak with somebody locally and that might have experience in navigating this scenario. Normally, what is moral, what is not offensive, is decided according to, in the UAE, is also decided according to Islamic principles. And to do so, you would need to, the best ideal way to do it would be speaking with a religious scholar that might be able to tell you this is okay under Islam as interpreted in the UAE, and this is not. Because you see that how it tricky gets.
But
Even
but
it's
yes,
not
but
what,
then
yeah.
yeah, then even with people doing cheers in a restaurant, that is against Islamic belief. So how does that really go down to it? I mean, drinking is possible in the UAE. when you're
Yeah,
cheering
drinking
and
is
you're putting
possible, but you shouldn't be doing it in a way that is public or that is outside of controlled environment. So in the moment, anything
yes.
that is public
So
that
in a
concerns,
restaurant, it's okay, but in
yeah,
a public beach, it's not.
yeah,
That's what.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. You
Okay.
should never be drinking outside of an area that is not regular, that does not have the rules that allow people to drink alcohol.
The license.
And
Yeah.
you should
Yeah.
never post publicly about drinking, about alcohol, use of narcotics, drugs. Gambling is also off the table.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And don't,
Um,
and sorry
the,
if I can build up on that, and don't
please.
also make the assumption that everything that is under Islam is wrong or right, because Islam is a religion that affects a lot of countries, and is used and interpreted differently from country to country. The
Yeah.
UAE is one of the most open-minded jurisdictions, but at the same time, we always need to be very, very respectful. And it doesn't just apply to what is immoral as per Islam, because you also need to be careful of other religions and other
Yeah.
beliefs, because the UAE respects all of them equally
Yeah.
as much as it can.
Okay. Okay, we have one comment. I don't think it's a question, but the visit permit fees are not accurate, as the visitor or client needs to go through one of the four accredited agencies by UAE Media Council, and these agencies mark up to a minimum of AED 1,500 per permit. Do you think that would be waived soon, or it's a way for to drive business that way for sure?
No, I think no, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the clarification, and it does make sense that the UAE would do that, because they tend to do that with a lot of
Yeah,
with a lot of other regulated businesses. They establish certain agencies that only them can get the permit, and because of that, then the cost of a visitor permit is driven upwards. It might be that at some point they will either close down this market and only those four agencies will remain, and that will drive costs up, or they will allow any new company or marketing agency that is registered to make this sort of registration, and that will eventually drive costs down.
okay, okay. Um, yeah, that's the end of the question line that we have. If there's anything you would like to add at the end of this, it was very informative. I think it's still a little bit ambiguous in terms of really like until all
Yeah,
the
how to
guidelines come
navigate it.
to,
And I'm sure,
yes,
as you see, like this decision was issued early in 2025, and the deadline has just been set now to register. I'm sure that following this, there will be a lot of other regulations and trainings that will be issued that people can use as a reference to keep navigating this a bit confusing regulation right now.
yeah. Thank you so much, Annibale. That was really wonderfully explanatory, and you've answered all our questions with such patience,
Of
and
course, my
we really
pleasure. And I
appreciate your
mean, I did
time.
add a few slides at the ends. They're very quick if we want to run through them. I think some of the question
Sure.
concern tax and registration. At the beginning, I give a brief about the difference of getting a license in your own name or setting up a company, and that has implication on how then the advertiser is treated from a tax perspective. The only two big things that they need to be aware of is how much money is their business generating, because if they do so in their own personal name, then they need to register for corporate tax in the moment that their annual turnover from this business exceeds the 1 million dirham
Oh,
threshold.
yeah.
And on that amount only, they will be subject to pay corporation tax at the rates as established by the UAE. I think most practical recommendation to deal with that, if you are an individual, you are an advertiser, and you're carrying out this business separately from other businesses that you have, your day-to-day job, any real estate investments that you have, or personal investments in companies that you get dividends from, keep those finances completely separate, because those three classes of income are fully tax-free from a corporate tax perspective. and you don't want to be end up being taxed on that amount because all your finances are merged together. So make sure that you separate them. And the same applies to VAT, except that the threshold is much lower and it's 375,000. So you need to register for VAT at that point, and you can do so in your personal name. The same applies if you instead, let's say that you start making much more money from your business and you want to create a company to deal with it because it's better from a financial standpoint and also to limit your liability, then the same consideration apply for VAT. You need to wait until your turnover is 375,000 dirhams in a given 12 months period. But for corporate tax, if you do set up a company, you need to register within 3 months from opening the company and still do
Mm,
filings regardless. So I just want to
excellent.
give a brief outline. It's obviously a very, very complicated argument to navigate, and I appreciate it's not the main reason, but because you need to get this license and you need to carry out this business that is not tax-free, you need to be aware of them, and there are things to
Yeah.
consider in the long run. They not necessarily for somebody who's just started or is not earning so much from this activity, but in the moment that you do, you need to be aware of that because otherwise other tax penalties and issues might impact you. And that was the end of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Anibale. Really, it was so informative. I think we've taken all the questions and we've taken all of your time today. Thank you
Of
so
course,
much
it's my
for being with
pleasure.
us. Thank you for all the attendance. I hope this was useful to everyone. And we're going to be posting this on our website, on our LinkedIn, and on our YouTube channel so people can watch it back or share it with their team as they need to.
Yeah,
Thank you so
that's
much,
great.
Anibale and Laura,
Of
for
course.
organizing this webinar and being helping the MMA spread the word about whatever it is that is needed in marketing. We really appreciate you.
That's great. And I appreciate being given the opportunity. And I look forward to other opportunities like this where I can help collaborate. And yeah, I've left my contact details. So anybody feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I'm also available on LinkedIn, other social media platforms. And yeah, that's pretty much sums it up.
Excellent. We also have a little survey about today's webinar. Whoever is still on, please take some time to just fill it out so we can know what other information would be useful to you in the future. Thank you very much and see you next time.
Okay. Thank you again. And all of you have a great rest of your day. Bye bye now.
You too. Bye.
To stop.